Oh, he's wonderful, thank you. I'm so happy to hear that. How was your bridge tournament? I saw in the paper yesterday. It was amazing, thank you. That's wonderful. They should be here any minute. Speak of the devil. Welcome, Helen. Take a seat. Good to see you again, Cora. Please, sit down. This is my daughter-in-law, Pearl. Pearl, this is Cora Brown-Rollo and Helen Perry Lightfoot. Of course I know Cora. She and I were appointed on the committee in 1925 when Miss Ramsey from the state legal office came to speak. I was representing Carbondale, and Cora was representing Murfreesboro. Oh, ladies, would you like a cup of tea? That sounds lovely. Pearl, could you please pour it? Thank you. So how have you ladies been? I've been swell. How have you? I'm happy to hear that. I've been doing well. Cora, how about you? Jane? Jane is doing well, and so am I. That's wonderful to hear. Thank you, Pearl. Thank you. Pearl will be taking notes today on our reminiscences. Now that we have celebrated the 10th anniversary last year of the formation of League of Women Voters and the 19th Amendment. I'm thrilled to be a part of collecting your stories of what your experiences have been in Madison County. I'll have a couple of things to add as well. Pearl, please note today's date, December 18th, 1931. Make sure to put my full name in the notes. Mary Caldwell Easterly. You never know how far in the future someone will want to know about what we have accomplished. Helen, Cora, please tell us some of your family history before we begin. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I spent some time in Champaign, teaching there before coming to Carbondale, also teaching until my marriage to Dr. Henry E. Lightfoot in 1908. Henry's first wife died in 1901, shortly after celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary, and leaving behind 2 children, Frank, who was just 8 at the time, and Anna, who was 18. Sadly, Frank died only 3 years after our marriage, and Anna died in Texas just 2 years ago. Lots of tragedy in the family. Henry's other 3 children also died long before their mother. We lived in an apartment in the First National Bank building, where I also had my corset business. I purchased many corsets from you in my day. I was a distributor for the Gossard Corset and the Brassieres, and I graduated from the Gossard Corsetier School, where I learned how to properly fit women. I have sold many corsets throughout the years, 1917 to 1920 being some of my best years, especially with the invention of the front-lacing corset. I marveled how it took so long to figure out that the front-lacing corset was a much better idea than the one that laced in the back. I was so happy for business, especially so when Henry died so suddenly in 1919. I was so sorry to hear of his death. There was quite a write-up in the newspaper. I know. It was so detailed. And after Henry died, I thought I'd become even more involved in the community. I had been the chairman of the Charity and Civic Club of Carbondale for quite some time. We supplied orphans and widows with the things they needed through fundraisers, like the Elks Lodge, who gave us $50 in 1911 to turkey and coat drives for Thanksgiving. I was also chairman for the membership committee for the Tuesday Musical Club and was elected by the Carbondale Committee on the Council of National Defense to the Board of Control, representing the Episcopal Church in 1917. Henry had his own legacy of city-elected offices, so I decided to do the same. He was a lay member of the Episcopal Church, an alderman on the city council, and a wonderful doctor. We all loved him, despite what happened. What happened? It was a sensational murder trial. It was the talk of the town. Just a second, I think I have an article saved. Here it is, the Cairo Citizen. One of the hardest fought trials for murder that ever occurred in southern Illinois was brought to a conclusion at Murfreesboro on Wednesday, February 3rd, 1886, by a conviction and sentence of the defendant, Dr. Henry E. Lightfoot, to a term of 20 years imprisonment in the penitentiary. It would seem that on the 21st of November last, Dr. Lightfoot met Mr. Benjamin W. Moore, a lawyer, upon the streets of Carbondale, of which city both were residents, and shot him down in cold blood. It happened close to the railroad station. An old political feud seems to have existed between the two. Moore died December 11th. Dr. Lightfoot was duly indicted and brought to a speedy trial, which lasted 9 days. The ableist counsel were employed on both sides, with the results as stated above. You may wonder how he was able to get out, be elected alderman, and go on to do his doctorate. He was discharged for good behavior after serving only 5 years. I have no doubt his behavior was exemplary. He was so dedicated. We all loved him.
This all happened 23 years before we were married. And anyways, I can still recall how I felt when I decided it was my turn to become involved, addressing the voters of Jackson County. Now it's my turn to become politically involved. It's 1920. Women have a lot of power with the right to vote. With the first primary coming up, we can make a difference with every race. The Carbondale Free Press will have the ballots. There are 11 tickets because of all the different parties. The Democrats and the Republicans are the only ones with full state tickets. There are twice as many ballots this time because of the women voters. But they are keeping it separate for women. The women ballots are made identical, but kept separate on any chance of a contingency which might arise from the suffrage amendment. I have traveled the entire county within the past 4 weeks, and I have worked very hard. I do regret that I was not able to meet with more of the voters from each party for their kind and courteous treatment. I have found women all over the county ready to accept the right of ballot and loyal to the meaning of casting votes for women. Men, too, will also value the meaning when they consider the many mothers who are left to rear the family by themselves. And if capable, why not be given the work that they can do? Many women will not go into a business field unless forced to do so, and they will not take the place of a man if provided for. Please, give me the same consideration as the other candidates in the primary. I have always been dry and am endorsed, and I strongly favor suffrage. All honor to those good men and women who have so long fought for it. We are sisters in the cause. And as the candidate who wants the women's vote and knows your power, I ask that we rally, as we always do, the good cause, and put me over the top.
I think we all remember the anti-suffragist sentiments expressed. May 22nd, 1910, the Chicago Tribune. S.A. Baldus, editor of the Catholic Church Extension magazine, stated, "I would rather see the country overrun by bomb-throwing anarchists than have it in the hands of women suffragists, such as the howling, peace-disturbing English suffragettes. If we gotta choose between hysterical politics and corrupt politics, then give us corrupt politics."
Mary, I found this pamphlet in some of the old papers with helpful household hints and a dash of anti-suffrage sentiment. It's from the National Association Opposed to Women's Suffrage. Listen to what they wrote in the guise of solving problems of cleaning your sinks or removing stains. Housewives, you do not need a ballot to clean out your sinks, Val. A handful of potash and some boiling water is quicker and cheaper. There is, however, no method known by which mud-stained reputations may be cleaned after bitter political campaigns. And look at the back. Vote no on women's suffrage because 90% of the women either do not want it or do not care. Because it means competition of women with men instead of cooperation. Because 80% of the women eligible to vote are married and can only annul their husband's votes. Because it can be of no benefit commensurate with the additional expense involved. Because in some states, more voting women than voting men will put the government under petticoat rule. Because it is unwise to risk the good we already have for the evil that may occur.
Here's another. May 26, 1910, the Chicago Tribune. Dr. Max Bath of Clark College, Worcester, makes a statement from the psychological standpoint that woman is no better than the savage of the old. He says, she emulates them by her love of birds, feathers, hanging of ornaments to her ears, wearing bracelets, rings, and necklaces, and affecting gaudy colors. She arranges her hair in fantastic shapes by artificial methods, and is partial to dog from the powder or paint pot, like savages. She is colorblind, prone to religious hysteria, and impressionable. Dr. Max Bath thinks women's suffrage agitation is a form of women's emotional insanity, which will soon end.
I've heard that before. Fortunately, there were other points of view published very convincingly in the newspaper as well. Here's one. The Nebraska Daily Press, July 18, 1914. That women are not intelligent enough to vote is one of the arguments advanced by those opposed to the extension of the franchise to women. Men who make such an assertion show very plainly that intelligence is not one of their own assets. If women are not intelligent enough to vote, then they are not intelligent enough to be teachers in public schools. Ideas of government held by every reader of this newspaper came to them primarily through the training that they received in public school, where a vast majority of the teachers are women. If women are not intelligent enough to vote, they are not intelligent enough to do housework, the most complex occupation in the world. The not intelligent enough argument has been shot full of holes.
Here's another. From the Journal and Tribune, Knoxville, Tennessee, July 17, 1950. For those who question the morality and intelligence of giving the ballot to women, more than 90% of the inmates of the Nebraska Penitentiary are men. You will find a majority of women in the churches. If women are intelligent enough to keep out of the penitentiary and have enough morality to go to church, then there is no question of their fitness for the ballot.
There certainly has been a lot of statements made by both men and women. For instance, here's something from the Carbondale Free Press on January 6, 1913. Miss Betsy Story of Carmine, Illinois, turned 100 years old last Friday. She has lived in the state since its year of admission to the Union in 1818. Has never worn a corset, couldn't have been a customer of mine then, nor ridden in a railroad train, does not believe in women's suffrage, smokes a pipe in the old-time way, and a day before her birthday, baked a cake to be used in celebrating.
I sometimes wonder about the impartiality of newsmen. Hear this one from, let's see, the Chicago Examiner, November 3rd, 1911. The regular weekly tea of the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association, yesterday afternoon in the Fine Arts Building, became a propaganda meeting for the exploitation of the suffrage newsladies, who will sell copies of the Women's Journal, the National Suffrage Organ, on the streets within the loop at noon and between 5 and 7 in the evening. The squads will be composed of the younger and prettier members of the organization.
Mary, weren't you on the board of the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association?
Yes, I was. I have always considered myself a suffragist. I am much older than you girls and remember a very different time, when my family moved from Hopkinsville, Kentucky to Carbondale. My family name is Caldwell. We are founding members of the First Christian Church in Carbondale in 1870, for heaven's sake.
Why did your family move here?
My family moved here so my parents could provide better educational opportunities for my 5 brothers and sisters and me. My brother, Beverly, was in the first graduating class at Southern Illinois Normal University in 1876. My sister, Delia, graduated 2 years later and went on to get a degree in medicine. She practiced medicine in Paducah and then moved back to Carbondale. where she has taught physiology and health education at the university ever since. My brothers, Frank and Andrew, also attended SINU. Frank was city clerk for some time, and Andrew was a lawyer who practiced in Carbondale. I was the director of physical education at the university from 1894 to 1897, when I gave up my career to marry my husband, Herman Gates Easterly. Funny enough, I met Herman when he was my student at the Pleasant Grove School. Anyways, when we got married, he was a widower with 2 boys to raise. Perhaps you know my niece, Virginia. She married William McAndrew, a lawyer. Although he never practiced, he seemed happiest to be the coach at the university. His name was brought up to run for state's attorney, but the Republicans had a strong hold on the county. I remember in 1910 when the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association held driving tours of Illinois to rally people to vote for suffrage here. Despite running into problems with individuals trying to derail their efforts, the car broke down, delaying their carefully planned schedule. When they got to Anna, heavy rains forced them to abandon their car. But those women never gave up. They were eager to have a chapter in Southern Illinois. After the driving tours of 1910 and 1911, much interest was shown. Reverend Kate Hughes was on the board with me. She was a real go-getter and never backed down from a challenge. She was reported to have said, when I asked Lee O'Neill Brown for his support in the legislature, he told me he loved his mother and sisters too much to see them meddle in dirty politics. But he never mentioned his 2 divorced wives. In the end, Illinois was the first state east of the Mississippi to give women the right to vote, despite him. You know, women's clubs were the real precursor to the League of Women Voters. First, at the time, as you may recall, there weren't many social outlets for women who wanted to do more than needlework in the company of others. They wanted to get out of the house and do something meaningful, hence women's clubs. In fact, almost all of the local league members also were members of women's clubs. My sister-in-law was president of the Carbondale Women's Club, and I was president of the Beethoven Society, considered part of the Illinois Federation of Women's Clubs. There, we discussed many important topics, such as how we could help prohibit the selling of liquor in Carbondale. We adopted a resolution where we stood strictly opposed to such lawlessness as selling intoxicating spirits, and stood ready to help suppress the evil in our city, which is anti-saloon territory. So, many women were eager to have a chapter in Southern Illinois. I remember we had a meeting organized with members from the Illinois League speaking. The meeting was to be held at the Murfreesboro Courthouse. We even had it scheduled so people from Carbondale could take the 3:30 trolley car to the meeting. What happened? The notice in the Carbondale Free Press announcing our first meeting was published the very day of the tri-state tornado, which wiped out much of Murfreesboro, as you well know. 5 towns were destroyed, with 541 people killed and over $16 million in damages, with Murfreesboro property losses 2/3 of that. Cora, you know a lot of our local history, don't you? You're the only native Southern Illinoisan in the group here.
I certainly have deep roots in Jackson County. I want to add that I lived in Murfreesboro at the time of the tornado, and we had to rebuild just like many others. My father also lived in Murfreesboro at the time. He has told me many stories throughout the years. He said his father remembers when Brownsville was the county seat.
Where's Brownsville?
Brownsville was situated on the right bank of the Muddy River, nearly 5 miles, a little southwest of Murfreesboro. It was, at its time, the only town in the county. It was where all citizens entitled to vote would assemble, and where the militia mustered on the green on training days, and where Governor Duncan spoke. I have written down quite a few stories that my father has told me through the years. He said his father remembers when the county courthouse burned down in 1843. So many records were lost, including land transfers, and my grandfather had just purchased land in the county. All record of its purchase had been destroyed. Word got out that the records had been lost, and a man who had old newspapers in his possession found the announcement of the land transfer in the paper. This was used to prove that my grandfather owned the land. This was important as the family of the man who sold the land was suing for possession. My grandfather was happy that the county courthouse was moved to Murfreesboro and it was made of brick. It's rather ironic that we have a new courthouse finished just 4 years ago.
I remember you were quoting that paper.
Yes, I was speaking as a member of the women's club. I said,
progressive and will turn out and vote for the issue. And they did. Such an
impressive structure. Another interesting tidbit, my father and his brother helped build the Eads Bridge over the Mississippi in St. Louis. The limestone from the bluffs above our house have special qualities, making it ideal for bridge building.
The valley there is beautiful. Tell the girls how the town got its name.
The town of Cora is named after me. My father, Charles Brown, owned land where the railroad wanted to lay down tracks and cross, but he would not sell the land. However, he agreed to the tracks being laid if they named the town after me and allowed us to board for free. But there was not an official stop, so we had to light a fire to signal to the train to stop and allow us to board. We now have a movie theater, barbershop, and other commercial buildings. My family did all right and sent me to college at Belmont University in Nashville. There, I think I discovered my confidence to speak out. The school was founded by two women who thought of bucking the finishing school type of education and providing cultural, intellectual, and social learning, and
of lives with purpose. You know, I've always considered myself a suffragist.
since my husband died, leaving me with my little girl Jane, who was just 5 at the time, I've had to look out for the two of us by myself. You know, not too long ago, I drove to Florida. I kept a loaded gun under the front seat. You can never be too careful.
What's the difference between a suffragette and a suffragist? I've heard the term suffragette used so much more.
I'm glad you asked. In 1906, a reporter writing in a newspaper in England coined the term suffragette as a term to belittle women who demand the right to vote. When you add an E-T-T-E onto a word, it makes a thing little, such as a kitchenette or a laundrette. These women embraced the name, even adopting it as their name for their own newspaper. In America, the women saw suffragette as an offensive term, and suffragist was used instead. Anti-suffragists use suffragette as a slur in their fight to deny women the right to vote. There was even a difference in the colors used by the two movements. In England, the colors were purple for loyalty and dignity, white for purity, and green for hope. In the United States, the colors were purple for dignity, white for purity, and gold for enlightenment.
Before the Jackson County League was official, I was involved in an organization where we followed the Illinois State League's recommendations. I remember in November of 1924, there was a Southern Illinois Horticultural Association meeting where a representative of the American Fruit Growers wanted the association to go on record as against the Child Labor Amendment, saying it was socialistic and gotten up and fostered by labor to keep the price of labor up. I asked the man if he had a copy of the amendment. He did not have it. I then gave the answers to his statements that I was given by the Illinois State League. The association did not give the man the endorsement he'd asked for.
I guess it was in 1925 when Miss Ramsey came to speak about child labor, women in industry, and the legal status of women. I remember clearly she saying, "What you put in the ballot box, you take out. If it be greed and dishonesty, you get graft and bad government. And if it be honesty and intelligence, you get good government." Truer words have never been spoken.
The Jackson County League of Women Voters was chartered on March 17, 1926, after almost 2 years of effort. I was the first president of the league. We lobbied for child labor laws, and even held a school of citizenship at Norman. We worked tirelessly for the child labor amendment. I was made aware of the terrible conditions under which newsboys in Chicago worked. Some of those who handled the night editions were permitted to sleep in the newspaper's garages. They did not, excuse me, they did not fall under the amendment as they were considered merchants, not employees.
By January of 1927, we had about 75 members on the league. In 1928, we worked for the right for women to serve on juries, development of the accommodations for those women on juries. There were no women in bathrooms in the courthouse, even though there were women employees. We fought against ballot marking procedure problems and promoted get out the vote. I have to read you I received from the Illinois State League.
It's in her purse somewhere.
We'll find it.
Oops!
I must have left it at home.
Oh no. We'll get a copy somewhere. Here you are.
Oh, thanks. May 31st, 1929. Dear Mrs. Rollo, it was a joy for our league caravan to stop in
And have a chance to meet with you. A trip like this one we have just made means a great deal to those taking it.
in acquainting them with the organization problems of the different parts of the state, and, of course, most of all, acquainting them with you. We hope that the visit means half as much as you. In each league we visited, we found encouraging signs. Mrs. Fowler feels especially heartened at the attitude of the women in the southern part of the state in respect to jury service. She feels that almost unanimously they realize the justice and equity of the measure and will work for the passage of referendum. This was signed by 3 members of the Illinois State League of Women Voters, a tireless group.
We have worked hard. My sister Delia and I hosted the annual guest day for the Jackson County League of Women Voters at Delia's house in Carbondale. We also organized a conference at the Hotel Roberts with meetings and a luncheon. We have been so busy.
I wrote
Mary, I said that to come in contact with the Jackson County League
and not know of Miss Easterly is to not know Jackson County at all, for she is truly the mother of the league, nursing it along and giving it the tender care on which it has thrived. At least lived, I would say. You know, there was a time I thought I may have to resign from the league, as I am a member of the Republican Party and the league is not partisan. However, I have been reassured that being a member of a political party does not mean you can be part of the league. I have to read you a letter I received regarding the jury issue from the state league. This demonstrates how the league is important to the electoral process. May 31st, 1929. Oh, wrong one. June 5th, 1931. Dear Mrs. Rollo, would it be possible for you or any other member of the Jackson County League to get in touch with Mr. Joseph H. Davis and use your best powers of persuasion to have him vote favorably for the women on jury bills when they come up next week? He says that he does not think women want to serve and need some convincing. Mrs. Paul Rittenhouse, Executive Secretary.
You know, I could have used league support when I was running.
Unfortunately, Helen was swept under the avalanche of Republican majority in the county. She ran ahead of her ticket in Carbondale and other sections of the county. She was defeated by perhaps 2,000 votes.
Thankfully, my civic involvement did not stop there. Shortly after Election Day, I was appointed chairman of the Board of Health with a nominal salary following Reverend Merrill's resignation. That was a hectic time with Spanish Flu Epidemic. Here's what I said to the Carbondale Free Press in 1922. At the present time, we have a number of cases of colds, grip, or a mild return of flu. There is, so far, no serious or alarming reasons for excitement. It is up to you to help check this and make the public safe. You have no right to visit the sick who have communicable diseases. Carelessness brings on an epidemic, and then the fatalities follow, and then the general public go mad with excitement. This creates fear and sicknesses of other natures to follow. Stay away from others and take care of yourself. Consult your physician, and if sick, be careful. I hope that with all of my heart, that we never go through something like that again.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
You did an awful lot for the city as chairman of the Board of Health.
Unfortunately, I and every other elected official of Carbondale were not re-elected. A clean sweep. But the paper did do a good job of pointing at my successes, spending $250,000 for malaria prevention. And we took blood samples of school children to determine the extent of the disease. I was the first paid Board of Health chairman and was appointed by Dr. Rawlings of the State Board of Health, Dr. Templeton, State District Health Supervisor, and Dr. Weiner of the State Department. Under my direction, the Board of Health became one of the most important city offices, and so is regarded by the people.
Pearl, I think it's important to note that you have made your own contributions.
Thank you, Mary, for saying that. I was elected Williamson-Jackson County Home Bureau this past May. I really enjoy being a part of this organization and sharing what I've learned. Just last month, I presented on food safety to the women of the Home Bureau. And I, too, have been active in the League of Women Voters and plan on a leadership role there someday.
Congratulations on your election. We are all part of the fabric of life here in Southern Illinois.
Cora, you have such a beautiful singing voice. I remember after our particularly patriotic league presentation, you sang Fate of Our...
Could you sing that for us today? I would love to.
If you sing with me.
Faith of our fathers living still, in spite of dungeon, fire, and sword. Oh, how our hearts beat high with joy whene'er we hear that glorious word. Faith of our fathers, holy faith, we will be true to thee till death. From the faith of the suffrage movement came a great idea. The idea that a nonpartisan organization could provide political education and experience, which would contribute to the growth of the citizen and thus assure the success of the democracy. The League of Women Voters was founded upon that idea. We will sing March of the Women. Shout, shout, up with your song, cry with the wind, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, swing you along, wide blows our banner and hope is waking. Songs with its story, dreams with their glory. Lo, they call and glad is their word. Loud, loud, louder it swells under a freedom, the voice of the Lord. Life, strife, these two are one, not can ye win, but by faith and daring. On, that ye have done, but for the work of today preparing. Firm in reliance, laugh at defiance, laugh in hope, for sure is the end. March, march, many as one, shoulder to shoulder and friend to friend. March, march, many as one, shoulder to shoulder and friend to friend.
Folks, you have the words to the March of the Women in your program. Please stand up and sing it along with us.
Shout, shout, up with your song, cry with the wind, for the dawn is breaking. March, march, swing you along, wide blows our banner and hope is waking. Songs with its story,
Mary